Dave McNamara, everybody's read that bio, right? I won't go through, I mean, my life has been technology, applying technology. That has been the opportunity space for most of my career, 31 years of my career. And then I decided I was going to retire. Ford helped me in that regard, and so I decided I would start my consulting business. And then I learned some things about small businesses. I worked with small businesses. I went from an engineering mindset of why do you need marketing to more, marketing is everything, so I've really, come to the dark side, but I'm an engineer. So, first of all, we really want to talk about a tool set and resources. When you talk about finding opportunities in difficult times, like any stressful situation, anytime you're discouraged, you go to the word and you go to your disciplines. If you're in combat, the first thing that the successful person that went through combat and survived will say, I went to my training. I went to my tool set. I actually remembered what I learned in boot camp. So this is a little bit of a boot camp of going through tools and methodologies that will help you. Next is, really understand the challenges, because out of the challenges come the opportunities. If you don't have if you're not circumspect, one of my favorite verses is in Ephesians 5, walk circumspectly, look around you. When you're under pressure, you lose your tunnel vision. You're a fighter pilot. You're under attack. You're looking that way only, and you don't see the other guy. You're playing chess, and we'll talk about chess. And that's my problem when I play chess. I don't see that bishop up in the corner, and that comes flying down, and checkmate, I lost the game. So there's a lot of things we can talk about, and why strategic planning, thinking circumspectly, is very important in challenging times. And then also leadership. And I don't want to talk too much about that, because we just had some outstanding work sessions on leadership. Michael got into that. Dr. Jim got into that. But, I just want to reinforce the importance of your leadership with your team, and having the right team, and having them see the endeavor, the new opportunity, as critical to the success of the organization. Next, we will explore some of those opportunities. I mean, I was really tempted when Brother Terry called and he said, opportunities. I started just thinking about all the opportunities, and I go, no. I'm talking to people in Iowa I don't know. Okay, so coming in with all the new automotive products that we could be putting on cars is very good for brand motion, which is in my wheelhouse, but maybe not very good for this area of the world. So that's why tools and learning the methodologies are very important, because your situation is different. And also very important is your value network is different. You all have a very different value network, and we'll learn what that is. Next, if time permits, we'll go through this and kind of test drive and try to understand some of those opportunities and how we evaluate them as a team in a collaborative process. And some lucky person will get my textbook for this class, The Innovator's Dilemma by Clayton Christensen. Who has heard of this book? Okay. Classic book on innovation. He's the first person to really distinguish the difference between sustaining technologies, everyday garden variety improvements, over disruptive technology. He's the first one to give a clear thinking about what's the difference between a disruptive opportunity and one in which is like, your next generation product. Okay. What are the challenges? And this is my list. Okay. I'm unfortunately a news junkie. My wife really gets mad at me. I'm always watching Fox Business. I'm always watching the news. Haven't you heard the news 5 times over already? You know, who are news junkies? Anybody? Yes. You are in a very good opportunity, good space to be able to understand opportunities. And it's really what you're starting to see patterns and understand patterns. It's not the fake news, it's the pattern, it's the underlying pattern. Why are we always talking about sustainability? Why are they always talking about electrification? Well, there's a reason for that. COVID, well, we don't need the news to know COVID. Social activism, what is this with the government spending and what are they going to do about equity? Well, you might find in my company, all of a sudden we have opportunities for workforce development training. All of a sudden, the city of Columbus would like us to help them train their mechanics on how to install new technology for new connected automated vehicles. So out of that challenge has come an opportunity. Supply shortage, skilled workers, and the quantity of them. Most people in school really do not want to get their hands dirty, which is a problem. I think I met this gentleman here. You know, every time I meet somebody who really would like to use their hands, I go, "Would you like a job?" Because my company has a lot of installers, a lot of people who really get their hands dirty, get in the cars, and I don't meet many people like that because most people want to be video game creators, software engineers. The world, we do need software engineers, but when you really realize that software engineering still requires hardware, it still requires your bathroom fixture to be fixed, it still requires your house to be built. So there are so many opportunities in today's world for blue collar jobs, and there's a shortage of the people and skills to do that kind of work. Supply chain disruption. What do I mean by that? I look out my door at the Ford Briarwood dealership and it's empty. There's no cars there. If you go in and you want to buy a new car, you can't buy a new car. If you drive to, I forget where it is, some parking lot, there's all these cars being stored because they don't have the electronic circuitry to go into the center panel to get the display working. And no one wants a car where, you just see a blank screen. Okay, so there is serious supply chain shortages. More and more companies are bringing their products to the United States and shortening their supply chains. Okay, all my friends that were going to China are now going to Vietnam or going to Iowa. Okay, to look where they can build new factories and plants. You really have to think through what is your unique set of difficulties and where will they be? I didn't fit that on the slide, but where are the opportunities? Where, things are segmented and stratified. So Iowa has a completely different set of opportunities than Michigan. Also, you really got to ask yourself when finding opportunities, can I move? Will I move? A good example, Europe in, I would say, the 1800s. Many Europeans would say, or India in the 1960s and 1970s. Many Europeans back then in the 19th century and in the early 20th, in the mid 20th century said, I like it at home. I want to live at home. And then 1/3 of their family members said, United States is where it's happening. I'm moving. My family is moving to the United States. I'm going where it's at. And psychology of a lot of people is they're scared of what they don't know. And like your children with the boogeyman in the closet. I mean, who's got children? Trying to explain to a child that there's not a boogeyman in the closet. Okay. So you're naturally, psychologists talk about this. You're afraid of the unknown more than you're afraid of the known fear. So the known fear could be, they could be, so the Indians and the Europeans could be living in major upheaval of war or famine, and they don't want to take the trip to the United States. They don't want the disruption. But many Europeans, and my family did, in 1951, I went to Canada and then moved to the United States. My dad was willing to give his home away, just take what he could to Canada to start a new life, because he was convinced it was better there than it was in England, living in England post-World War II. Sorry about the long war story. I'll try not to ramble. But the point is, many of us don't really want to go where the opportunity is, okay? And you've got to ask yourself, you know, finding opportunities, do I really want to do that? Do I really want to change my life? And I would say, number one, go where there is a good church, okay? So when you make that decision, don't put yourself in a spiritual hole. So when I was thinking about leaving Ford to go to Honeywell in Minnesota, when we went there, we found a good church, okay? Then Ford counter-offered and gave me the job I wanted. But I'm just thankful that I was thinking along those lines. I wasn't going to go to a new opportunity if it was going to sacrifice my young family and go where there wasn't a church. And a lot of fortunately men make that wrong decision. Next, this slide. You know, I think you really, when you start looking at opportunities, you start thinking in terms of, is it the glass half full or half empty? The age-old problem. And your answer to that really does say a lot about your attitude and your you know, the way you view those opportunities. And when you look at this chart, you say, well, people are spending more money, but we should have had a V-shaped recovery and we got a W-shaped recovery. Okay. See that big hole? Where's all that money? All that money that wasn't spent. Where's all that money? Anybody got an answer? Who's our economist here? All that money that you didn't spend on your new whatever, in the bank. In the bank. Okay. So we never got that recovery. Yes, GDP spiked, gross national product spiked, but it's coming down. Why is it coming down? Anybody got an answer? Why is GDP not? Why is it down? The worker problem, the supply chain problems. Okay. So point is, to understand the environment, you got to know a little bit about macroeconomics. I mean, you don't have to be an economist, but you do really have to have some fundamental understanding. The debt is going through the roof, okay? And a lot of the, what I would say, the talking heads will say, don't worry about inflation. Have you heard that in the news? Who's worried about inflation? Okay. Why would the chairman of the Fed say, don't worry about inflation? Anybody want to answer that? Why would he? Vested interest in that answer. Because now he's got to stop, he's got to raise interest rates. Now he's got the president on his case, okay, because he just slammed the stock market by raising it. So you've got to be very, very concerned. You've got to be data-driven and not be listening to experts and personalities. And that's one thing this author makes very clear. The experts have vested interests. And a lot of times they have an agenda, and you really need to look at the underlying data. So when you go to a client, and you say, I have a great idea, will you help me with this? And they go, no, that's the worst idea in the world. You know, number one, ego, they have not thought of it. Number two, maybe they think that you're not going to help them on their existing product. So the expert opinion is a lot of times something you really got to challenge. And therefore, you know, strategic thinking and thinking broadly and circumspectly is important. But first of all, and this has been, I mean, Michael did a great job of making this point, you've got to start with your culture and your values and your mission, especially us. Okay. I mean, the cannabis business is really attractive. Okay. If you go drive down Michigan, everybody's in the cannabis business. So if I needed a quick buck right now, I'd be in the cannabis business, Okay. What's wrong with that? Lots of things wrong with that. That better not be my mission. Okay. So you really have to really think, why am I doing this? Why did I want to be a consultant? Well, I'm an old guy. I left Ford, I retired. I want to be productive. This is an opportunity, my mission, to help a variety of different companies and actually be very engaged, because I just don't want to sit around and work on, when people ask me, what do you do? Well, I fixed my barbecue today. I just didn't want to give that kind of answer, and I have a lot of friends who are retired, you go, that's their productivity. And you need to align any opportunity you go after with that mission and value, set of core values. And we'll give some examples. Okay, got to move stuff quick. You really want to make sure your leadership team is together on it, okay? And I'm sure Dr. Jim had that problem when you came and you had to solve a number of problems. You got to go, are people with me? I can't be a leader of one, okay? That's like 90% of the leadership problem is getting alignment. And I'm surprised at how many leaders don't spend time on that. And my boss, I love him, but he's so off in the marketing and sales, and he wonders why he has personnel problems because he hasn't done a lot of things that Michael's talked about. Okay. And I don't want to go off on that too long and ramble, but I'm just saying I have seen bad examples of that. Okay. And a lot of times, you got to reject short-term gratification, count the cost, manage your risks. You really got to think through, what am I doing? Do I have the insurances? A lot of us are in the insurance business here. Have I talked to my insurance broker and say, if I take on that government project, do I have the $1 million of liability insurance and how much is it costing me? I got to really think through what I'm getting into. And so people like your lawyer, your CPA, your mentors are very, very important for having you understand that risk, okay? Your wife, your husband, we can turn to existing models and people and resources to help us think. Very quickly, if you can Wikipedia Peter Drucker, read everything of his. I'm going to give you a reading bibliography that I'll make available online to you so you don't have to. This presentation will be available to you. Just email me. I'll turn it into a syllabus. You don't have to write everything down. So the point is, there are people who have thought very deeply about this problem. And if you ask Peter Drucker, he will say it's thinking and planning in an environment of tremendous uncertainty. Okay, and he will be talking about really in his books, your strategy is only as good as your next tactic. Okay, so a lot of times, have you ever been in a meeting where you go, what a wonderful meeting that was? Okay, great meeting. We talked about everything and I understand it. And then you ask yourself, what am I going to do in the next 30 seconds? Okay, you have no strategy. That is not a strategy. Okay. Okay, and so you really, Drucker talks about that very, very clearly, the need to take your strategy and put some feet on it. Like, what am I going to do next the next 36 seconds? What am I going to do after that? What am I going to do after that? So you can get pretty sophisticated about it. Michael Porter, his definition is really, and he's famous for his 5 factors of competition, very famous Harvard Business paper. And he said he's in more of a military context. That's why I like military history and military writers because they give you a sense that you're in a battle, a struggle. There is somebody on the other side of this business of yours. There's another Bible college. I'm serious. I mean, you don't want to go off on that too much because we're all, we're all brothers. But no. But you are competing for other students. So what does that mean to your strategy? You got to think about those things. Now, how do you prepare and to train yourself? Well, I've rediscovered chess. I used to play chess as a kid. I played a lot of board games, and I wondered why, as I grew up, I didn't like arcade games. They were very unsatisfying. I'm going, shoot 'em, first person shoot 'em games. I'd play them and I go after a while. I go, this boring. What's because it was highly repetitive. You're learning one or two simple skills over and over again. Okay, that's why a lot of people think video games, and the Chinese right now really think this, okay, that it's bad for children. And I've talked to people who educate small children, and they'll say, worst thing to do is to get your kids in those games when they're young, under 4. Some psychologists will be very strong about that. Keep your kids out of video games before 4, because what it does to your brain. Okay, so now what does chess do to your brain? Well, it's an old game, very, very complex, but easy to play. And it also teaches you a lot of things that are very practical to business. One of them is that there are different types of mistakes. Some are more critical than others. And in chess, you talk about the blunder, okay? And when you play online chess, like chess.com, and blitz games, which I love blitz games because they're only, 5 minutes means 10 minutes. You're not playing forever. You see these old guys come back playing the same game in the park for 4 months, So you're done in 5-10 minutes, and you have instant feedback over your errors. Okay, instant feedback. Okay, so you're not only learning strategic skills, you're getting immediate feedback about what was I doing wrong. Typical mistake. You're focused on this. You're not thinking about what this guy is going to do and his possibilities. And so it makes you think more circumspectly. Won't go too much more into this. Now, we talked a little bit about your value network, your value chain. What is a value network? And Dr. Christensen, he talks about that in great detail. We all have a value network. Mine, as a consultant, was the resource, me, okay? The values, well, I'm only going to work in the automotive space. That's where I'm comfortable with. I want to work with clients I like. I had to work in Ford with people sometimes that I didn't care for good reasons, but I get to choose my client, and I want to really move them forward, in their thinking and in their execution. So I just didn't want to be a gopher. I was going to take work where, fill out an Excel spreadsheet for me. No, I want to be part of their thinking process. So I had a mission and a set of values, and then to resource me. And then I would be taking on larger analysis projects. Like I worked on a cybersecurity evaluation project for the US Air Force, where a general who I knew from a former life said, the US Air Force is really worried about the vehicles they're buying, the F-150s. They drive around and the Border Patrol, and they want to know how susceptible those cars to intrusion. And at that time, there were some hackers that were really demonstrating that you could remote control some vehicles. Now, they had to do some really funny things to the car. It wasn't a simple thing to do, but they did enough demonstrations to really worry the Air Force. And they worried the Air Force, which was out of Syracuse, which is actually the Air Force research lab that is what I would call offensive in nature. So when we really get mad at the Chinese and want to shut them down, it's the guys out of Syracuse that are going to do that, okay? But we never use them. That's another problem. Okay. But the point is, so they had a visceral understanding of what possible things you can do, and they wanted to know, is that possible on today's vehicles? And when they would ask Ford and GM, what would they say? Of course, no, there's no problem. No, don't worry. Okay. So they wanted somebody independent that knew the automotive industry to do that work. Well, I had to create for that opportunity a new network because I had to get more resources. So I hired a couple seminary students from Inner City Baptist to do basic internet research. I expanded my value network. And my process was, fill out this spreadsheet, okay? And by the way, never identify who you are and end product. Make sure you use all publicly available information. So that's what I mean by your value network. How are you going to do the work? And you find that the new opportunities will actually make you change that. You will have to change that to go after the new opportunity. And you've got to ask yourself, number one, is it aligned to what I want to really do? Or number two, can I do it? Do I need legal advice? I'm creating a new product, and I think I need intellectual property protection. I need to hire a patent attorney. Okay. One thing we did in Brand Motion is when I joined them, we put more emphasis on our intellectual property, and we started patenting things that we never patented before. And by the way, that acts as a barrier. We actually went to SEMA. Who's ever heard of SEMA? Especially Equipment Manufacturers Association. Somebody copied our idea. Our attorney sent them a letter, no longer being sold. Okay, so you gotta look at the opportunity and align the value network to it. Okay, moving things along. I won't go over this in great detail, but Brand Motion, my client, and I do business development for them. Their mission is the highest quality OEM quality retrofit technology on used vehicles. So putting a rear view camera, a blind spot detection system, a collision warning system on your car. So you own, let's say, 2020 Edge, okay? Ford Edge. It's got a beautiful rear view camera. It's got blind spot detection and cross traffic. Who has cross traffic on their car? You'll buy it again? I'm sure you will. My wife loves it. She goes, got to get a car with cross traffic. I'm always backing out in a parking lot. Got to have cross traffic. Honey, I don't have that on the 2014 Fusion of ours. Okay, so go to Brand Motion. They will retrofit a radar system. They will have an OEM quality backup system on a used car. And it will look and act just like you bought it off the lot from Ford. Okay, so that's kind of our mission. We found out that when we started working with smart cities who wanted to equip vehicles with wireless to be able to talk to the infrastructure, especially trucks going down the road. Traffic light tells you that the light's going to change in 10 seconds, and you don't have enough time to brake. You need to go through that light. It will tell you whether to shift or stop for a traffic light or to continue. So a lot of cities are now deploying roadside infrastructure. Columbus, New York City, Tampa, LA, a lot in Florida. Those smart cities are now putting the infrastructure down as an enabler to future connected automotive vehicles. Okay, just think, My prediction is in about 10, 15 years from now, there'll be no traffic lights as we know it. The traffic will be orthogonal. Can you imagine that? I've seen actually simulations of that. This traffic goes this way, this traffic goes that way and misses it. So they packetize the traffic. You know, like, why would you want to do that? Throughputs go to from 6 to 10 times faster. Think of all the time you're slowing down for traffic lights, you're stopping for other vehicles. So you smooth out the traffic. If you're a traffic engineer, you call that speed harmonization, fancy term for that. So all the traffic engineers are really trying to do speed harmonization to increase the throughput of the roads. And this is technology that enables it. And they're asking us to install the equipment on their vehicles as the test vehicles, okay? In our core values. So what the value network we created really fit well with our core values, which was innovation. Where do we, you know, the types of opportunities, going to go through this fast. Disruptive and existing opportunities. Your existing customers are concerned about their problems and their challenges and a very poor source of information. And when it comes to disruptive, you really need expeditionary marketing. Expeditionary marketing is really going out to new markets, showing things and saying to customers you never had, what do you think of this? How would you use this? And usually it's first adopters. It's those people who, if you're in education, you know, who are the people who you think are going to be the most receptive to a new educational idea? You show them. You don't show your existing customers, you know, because they've got vested interest in what you're doing right now. How do you think of life cycles? And the S curve is just the classic way to think of any adoption of anything, okay? And it mathematically, which I don't understand the formula, comes from a tape deck. Who knows what tape decks are? Okay. Oh, people. Okay. So when you look at over time, this thing starts out slow, it speeds up, and then when this starts getting full, what happens? Slows down again, right? That's the S curve. And that's how things are really adopted and move forward. So when you've got over time, let's take a feature, usually features, you starting up, you accelerate, and you start slowing down in a transition. Now, notice I drew a line. That's market need. 9 times out of 10, and Christensen's make that point with data, that you oversupply the market, okay? And you commoditize it. You do the commoditization. Now, the real perverse thing about this and the dilemma is in this point, your revenue is going through the roof. You're ching, 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 you know, because, you know, so why does it, no one wants to change. You know, I sat in meetings at Ford over the truck business, and I'm sure Terry can relate to this. And we're selling every truck we can. We love that truck. We're too reliant on trucks. Nobody was going to be the one to say, let's build more cars and bring our margins down by 30%. Nobody, and that's a career-changing decision. So we all rode that train until one day, what happens? The train falls off the cliff, whatever that analogy, off the track, I guess. Doesn't fall off a cliff, off a track. So, and then you go from, you know, sugar high, so you can't find sugar anywhere, okay? And that was what happened, and Ford scrambled to get back in the car business. So in a way, you could say we're doing that now with SUVs, right? We're doing that. We're going to oversupply the market with SUVs. Okay, that's going to happen. Okay, but little prediction. But people who are really creative see this opportunity and move to a new product. Okay, you might say that's Tesla. Say that curve might be Tesla, electrification. They go, I can't get the range of a gasoline car, but I can give you things that you don't have, okay? Okay, and that's what happens when you move into new markets, and Christensen does a much better job of articulating than me. But definitely your product life cycles, you're going from reliability, convenience to price, commodity, and you got to know where you are and whatever you're doing. You know, where am I in that cycle? Okay, and in your strategy, you know, I'm thinking of Nathan over here, you know, like, when do I get out? You know, when do I sell the company? You know, when do I, you know, that company, you know, somebody else might see value in that, but you know, this is a time to really have an exit strategy. Key enables, you know, expeditionary marketing. Show customers new possibilities, recognize uncertainty, take calculated small risk. We'll talk about that. Create the right team. That is huge. And a tremendous advantage of me in my age of 70 was I had this ability to create the right team, because osmosis, I know people, you know, a client says, I got to get this done. I go, I know who, you know, Bob Kwasinski, best engineer that ever did, you know, he knows everything about sensors. That he, you know, Bob worked and he worked for me, worked for years. So you just need to be skilled at putting your team together. Dealing with egos. Alistair Begg, you know, I listened to him. There's a good book called Ego is the Enemy. I think he does a very good job of doing biographies and talking about people who have really dealt with their egos in a very positive way. Eisenhower, Sherman is a good example of a leader, you know, who was always second fiddle to Grant, but tremendous accomplishments, you know, that, you know, so maybe you're not going to be on social media, you might not be Elon Musk, but people will look at you and say, that's the person that gets things done. That's the company that will get it done. Okay. Next, are you resourced well such that when you make small mistakes and have setbacks, they're not game changing? Small experiments, you know, at Ford, we would work on a project and spend billions of dollars, it seemed, just to find out we shouldn't work on that. Okay. My boss came to me and, you know, and he said, and I was a supervisor and working on advanced instrumentation, going, Dave, GM's coming out with a HUD, heads-up display. We don't know whether we should be doing heads-up display. And I had the right team. I had a technician who was so skilled. I said, how do I build a heads-up display? Complicated mirrors, you know, the image has got to look like it's floating out in space. You got to have all these magnifying mirror, you know, I mean, I'm looking at this thing that we have never done before. And Mark Balicki raises his hand. Lesson is that your best ideas will come from your team. Best ideas will come from your team. Said, Dave. We just make a big box through the engine, put the display at the end of the box, okay? And then have one mirror that reflects it up. They'll never know. It will look just like a heads-up display. But you got this big, you know, you never build it that way. I mean, who wants a car like that, you know? But showing people and having them drive it around and evaluate it and doing expeditionary marketing, perfect. So all the execs drove it around, go, we don't like this. We put Lynn St. James, the race car driver, in it. She said, don't like it. You can't scan your mirrors. You know, Ford was doing very high performance vehicles and very drivable vehicles. We go, that's the last thing we want in our vehicle, is that people staring at that thing. Okay. And by the way, what information are we going to put in there? They go, well, you know, put the speed, put the temperature, you know, useless. So they said, cancel it. We're not doing any more. My team got an outstanding. Why? We spent very little money to show Ford execs why, when GM walked by, they go put it on every car, you know, right? You know, put it on every car. We don't care, you know, and GM did. And GM had a history in those days of putting features on cars without a lot of expeditionary marketing, you know, not really knowing whether it was going to work or not. You know, going after every opportunity, going, I got big pockets, you know. So, okay, little commercial against GM. Okay, right. Okay, test your ideas, quickly demonstrate. Now, you need excellent project management. Definitely, you do. And that's why I think the organizational class is outstanding with that focus, because I'm surprised at how many people don't have the fundamentals of project management and don't understand it. Okay. This is the marketing funnel, and Terry should give this presentation. Okay, but yep. But you start with awareness, engagement, customer business commitment, product launches, small market successes, and then you start getting customer advocacy. And the best story, and as I'm running out of time here, the best story is the Honda motorcycle story. They got to Wikipedia that. They had a Super Cub motorcycle bike that they brought to the United States. No one liked it. They're up against BMW, Harley Davidson. No one liked it. But then Kawasami-san, I'm probably murdering his name, one of the two Japanese from Honda, took it to a hill and started using as mountain biking. People loved it. And one of the people, a UCLA student, loved it so much, he said, I have an idea for your marketing. One of their customers, he said, you meet the nicest people on a Honda. Okay. And within 5 to 10 years, Honda dominated the motorcycle business, such that Harley Davidson was right. So this is an example of exploration and learning and engagement of your team and your, so how many of your employees are going to go out and do that kind of stuff for you, right? Experiment and try, okay. Focus on team building. SWOT is probably the best tool. Threats, you involve your team, and you're going to have the young guy go, we got to worry about cybersecurity. We got to worry about, we have to worry about phishing. You're going to engage your whole team on this. You're going to use project management. You're going to use collaborative consensus tools, small group idea generation, and there's another, I think Roland's going to be talking about this detail, so I'll blow over this. But I really want to give you the prioritization method. I think I want to give you an idea for how to prioritize and select your ideas. Then, next is, I think you need to be well read. Here's a list of books I will definitely, we talked about this one, Drucker, Military Strategy. Lindell is the NATO strategist. Project management is thick. That's why you got to go to this course. Okay, there's American Icon, Leadership, Mullally. These are books I've all read. You need to be a learning team and engage your team in that learning process. Book clubs, nothing like having a book club. Next, strategy and execution go hand in hand. Use expeditionary marketing. Collaborative tools such as the nominal group technique. Who's heard of that? Okay, wonderful technique. And the Pew concept selection process. That's Stuart Pew wrote a seminal paper that most people who are in complex system design will use that as a way to evaluate ideas and synthesize the winning idea in an objective manner. Usually we have treasured concepts. Engineers, an engineer would always come in and say, I'm working on this, got to use this screwdriver. Okay, come on, okay. We can't be using this screwdriver for everything. Yes, this is how we fix it, this is how we do this project. Okay, this screwdriver, there you go. How does that compare to an Allen wrench? So how does that prepare, to maybe torque wrench? How are you evaluating those ideas on an equal footing? So Stuart Pew talks about that. But nominal group technique, generate ideas openly, silently, record the ideas, discuss the ideas, combine the ideas, and then rank the ideas individually, and then compare notes. Okay, so very quickly, here's your criteria. Could be cost, could be ease, screwdriver, bad example, Allen wrench. Okay, now you have 5 or 6 people voting. Okay, okay. Let me put the votes here. You have the people voting, and what you find is that everybody gives their top votes to different things. Okay, then when you start if you notice here, there was. Yeah, maybe I'll go back to this. I'll go back. This will be simple. Done. Sales distribution system. Look, each participant voted pretty similar. You notice they all agree pretty much that the leadership team is the key aspect. So one thing what you can use with this map is to see where you have consensus and where you don't have consensus. I did it with the strategic business units, okay, at Ford. And I would say, list all your technical issues this way. These are all their exec engineers, and they vote on which ones are their technical issues. Every SBU, strategic business unit, audio, powertrain, driver information, said testing. So at the corporate level, we could say, we have a huge issue in testing. We feel like that we don't have that capability to test. Total agreement across the organization, okay? So it really helps you not only to get involvement of your team, but also to see if you have consensus of your team. Because if they're all over the place, what do you need to do more of? Yeah. What do you need to do more of? If you go through this exercise and they're all over the place. Discussion, okay? You know who is really good at that? Inherently, Asian cultures. They really sense when the team is not together, and they go, we got to go out to dinner. We're not going home. Americans are going, boss, you go, Jared, you decide. Okay, what are we doing, Jared? Okay, because we got to go to dinner and we got to go home. Okay, so Jared says, I voted for sales distribution team. We're all doing that. Everybody goes home, and the next day, guess what? Nothing goes forward. Okay. So the Asian cultures are really good in getting their team on the same space, and especially if you're going to go after a new endeavor, right? Just think of it. You know, you're going to be the charge of the light brigade, right? All those guys in the charge, they were totally committed to that charge. Okay. You know, so, but okay, bad example. There was not much of discussion. Okay, yeah. Okay. Another. We're going to end on this. Pew selection process, and I confused you because I kind of jumped to that. But you know, definitely you go. A good example. We're going to go into remote nursing. Who knows what traveling nursing is? Strong trend. Okay, especially COVID. So going back to our theme of COVID, right? COVID is a big safety issue, big response. Moving nurses to Texas hospitals, to Florida hospitals, and you're going, I have a nursing school. I have a syndicate of nurses that I know. How am I going to engage them? How do I design that? How do I design that product? How do I design that service? So Stuart would really help you. He says list the criteria. The criteria, you know, the technical term that is a morphological analysis. You know what I mean by morphological analysis? It means a human has a head, arms, feet, okay? That's, so everybody has that. Every concept will have those aspects to it: cost, reliability, availability. Now, what are the different ideas? And you start rating them at the same level of detail. And that's what Stewart teaches. He teaches that you fight everybody going off on one idea and designing it, okay, which is your tendency. Your tendency is, I love the screwdriver. Okay, I'm going to use the screwdriver. So you really think through at a very top level, which idea do you want to pursue? And a lot of times you go, fly the nurse in or have them co-located, and I just call them, have local nurses. This is our problem with installers, okay? You go, man, if I could only combine those two ideas, they'd have the highest score. That's called, there's a design term for that. That's called synthesis. Okay, it allows you to synthesize. It's a map that helps you like to synthesize. If I go, sometimes I'm going to fly them in, sometimes I'm going to use the local people. I'm flying in my top installers when I don't think the local people have the skill. I'm going to bring the local people in and they're going to train them. Okay, so you start to synthesize. So when you go after opportunities, that's the main thing. So ending on a positive note, is the glass half empty or half full? Are you an optimist or a pessimist? That's what really, yeah. But the main question is God's in control, right? Okay, so, we really need, I think as the leadership, we have to be optimistic. I think that's why this has been a great session, because we are really, we're trying to encourage so you can be optimistic, okay? My boss is the best at that. Bless him, I work for a Christian man, always optimistic, always positive, and I'm very thankful for that. Until Christ returns, we need to speak and act the gospel. So we really got to make sure that mission is well aligned, in those core values, because if we go off the weeds, into the weeds, we're in trouble. And lastly, in the world, there are examples of common grace. Who's seen this before? Yes. I mean, it brought tears. Yeah, it brought tears to my eyes when I saw this, because these two kids were strategic thinkers. Kids. The environment around them had changed tremendously. How did the environment change? It's a funeral of a funeral of a fallen military, probably passed away. And they're riding their bikes, and probably the older brother, what did he say? We're in the middle of a funeral. So he stops and he does the right thing. His core values were spot on, okay? Spot on. And he just was very on one level you go, oh, what a profession of patriotism. On another level you go, these two kids thinking correctly. So, that's the way we have to do. But it's an encouragement. So if you want